I have a big list of lazy portfolios on my website, and people constantly ask me which one is the best portfolio or which is my favorite. In this brief video, I'm going to go over one of my favorite lazy portfolios, and I'm willing to bet it's not one you would guess. So first, let's briefly talk about why there's no single objective answer for the best lazy portfolio. Is best the highest historical return, or the highest risk-adjusted return, or the lowest volatility, or the simplest, or the one that contains every possible investable asset? Each of those criteria would suggest a very different portfolio. While it's a boring non-answer, I maintain that the best portfolio is the one you can stick with for the long term through good times and bad. For some, that may be 100% stocks, and for others, it may be 100% short-term government bonds. Some of my important fundamental boxes to check would be low costs for the exposure we're getting, diversification in the broadest possible sense across multiple assets, a decent expected return per unit of risk, which we call risk-adjusted return, and simplicity in the form of a relatively small number of components. Considering those things, you're probably thinking of popular names like the Boglehead's 3-fund portfolio, Dalio's all-weather portfolio, or even my ginger ale portfolio. And while those would certainly fit the bill, none of them is the one I want to talk about here. Okay dude, enough already, just give me the answer. One of my favorite lazy portfolios is the Desert portfolio from the Gyroscopic Investing Forum. Chances are you've probably never even heard of it. It's one of my lowest trafficked blog posts and one of my least popular videos. It looks like this: 30% stocks, 60% intermediate treasury bonds, and 10% gold. Hopefully you didn't exit out of this video when I said 60% bonds. Let me explain why those weights are what they are. Seasoned investors may recognize these as roughly the risk parity weights for these three assets. Risk parity is a weighting scheme in which each asset contributes the same volatility to the portfolio. For example, suppose asset A has volatility of 15% and asset B has volatility of 10%. Risk parity is achieved at 40% of asset A and 60% of asset B, where each asset is contributing the same 6% volatility. This is arguably the most agnostic way to weight assets in a portfolio. Risk parity weights are also usually very close to what produced the highest risk-adjusted return historically. What I love so much about this portfolio is the elegant simplicity in taking three uncorrelated approachable assets and not really inserting opinions about their future expected returns in weighting them. You may recognize this portfolio as essentially being a simpler form of Ray Dalio's all-weather portfolio. Dalio, one of the smartest minds in investing and founder of Bridgewater, the largest hedge fund in the world, famously said he chose this type of all-weather approach precisely because he acknowledges he can't predict the future. This strategy has worked out well historically, delivering appreciable returns while significantly lowering volatility and risk. While it's not the appropriate benchmark, here I've compared the Desert portfolio to 100% stocks purely to show just how much lower the volatility and risk of the Desert portfolio was in comparison. Volatility less than half, max drawdown less than 1/3 the magnitude, and the worst year down only 12%. In short, a much smoother ride that would certainly be easier to stick with during tough times. We know that most vastly overestimate their tolerance for risk and then panic sell during crashes. Bonds and gold can also outperform stocks for extended periods. While it's probably an unpopular opinion, I would submit that most investors would be much better suited with something more diversified like the Desert portfolio than with 100% stocks. That may sound crazy to you right now, but I sincerely hope you remember this during our next major market crash. Again, you may immediately shy away from 60% bonds, but recognize that intermediate treasuries are a one-size-fits-most bond duration between short and long, so that higher allocation is required in this case for risk parity because those bonds are roughly half as volatile as stocks. Also appreciate that other than rebalancing, the allocations of the Desert portfolio would never need adjusting from early years all the way through retirement. That simplicity alone is extremely attractive in my opinion. I'll include a link in the description to invest in this portfolio if you're interested. I mentioned earlier that the Boglehead's 3-fund portfolio and the all-weather portfolio are other popular contenders. Click this video here to see me break down the 3-fund, or this video here for the all-weather. What do you think of the Desert portfolio? Do you have a favorite lazy portfolio? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.